Welcome. Today we are going to be building a basic CRUD application that demonstrates how to implement Spring pagination in Thymleaf, as you can see here, as well as how to implement Bootstrap Dynamic Modals in Thymleaf, as you can also see here. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm using the Eclipse IDE, and in the package explorer here, I will just right click and create a new Spring Boot project. And I will call this countries. Next, we need to add the following dependencies. spring-data-JPA to map our Java objects to the database. I'll be using the H2 embedded database. We also need this web dependency and the Thymeleaf templating engine, as well as this DevTools dependency. Now with this DevTools, if our application is running and we edit our source code in our class path and save it, the embedded Tomcat saver will automatically dictate it and restart. So this is it for the dependencies. I'll click on finish. The project creation is done, and I'll start by creating an entity class. So I'll right click here and create a new class. I would like to have that in a separate package, and I'll call it country. Finish. This class is going to have the following fields: private, integer, ID. This is going to be the primary key, private, string, name, which will be the name of the country, and private, string, capital. Next, I'll generate the getters and setters. So I'll click here and select generate getters and setters. And I'll select all of this and click on OK. And I'll also generate two constructors. So the first constructor will take in these two fields, and the next constructor will just be the default constructor. So I'll deselect all of this and click on OK. And next, I'll generate the toString method. Okay. I'll get rid of this super here. We don't need it. And then we map this class to the database by adding the following annotations. Add entity annotation from javax.persistence. And on this ID field, we add ID annotation in order to make that a primary key, and this add generated value annotation. I'll save that, and next we'll create a repository for this class. So I'll right click here and create a new interface, and I'll also have that in a separate package. I'll call it country repository. Finish. This will extend JPA repository, which takes two objects, one being the object we just created, which is the country class, and the other one being the type of the primary key, which is of type integer. Next, I'll create a Spring MVC controller. So I'll just right click here and create a new Java class. And I'll also have that in a separate package. And I'll call it country controller. This is a Spring MVC controller, so we need to annotate it with @controller annotation. Now, this application is going to have just one HTML page. So I will declare a method here that returns that page when we navigate to the default route. The default route in this case will be localhost 8080. So public string, and I'll just call this method show page. This will return index, which is the name of the page that we are going to create later on in this templates folder. That will be responding to the default route, so we need to add at get mapping annotation here that takes in the default route like this. And next we need to pass some data to this page. So in order to do that, we first of all need the model. I'll declare here the model, and I'll inject here the repository. So at auto-wired private country repository, and we'll pass the data to the view like this. Model.add attribute. I'll take this one and I'll just call it data, and we do country repo dot find all. I'm going to paginate this query, so I'll select this one, and here I will do a new page request that takes in a page and the size. I'll just give here a default size of 4, for example. And for the page, we are going to pass it as a request parameter. So I'll just declare it here in the page, and it will be a request parameter. We can also specify here the default value. Default value, I'll set it to 0. So if nothing is passed, the value by default will be 0. Next, I'll just go ahead and do the following methods. The first method that I'll be doing here will be inserting or updating a country into the database. So I'll call it save. It takes in the country, and it just saves it to the database. So country repo dot save, we'll pass in this value here, C, and we also need to import this country here. So after doing that, we just redirect back to this default URL. So return redirect like this. This will redirect to the default URL, and this will be a post request. So post mapping, and I will just call this save. Next, we do a method that deletes a country from the database. So I'll just copy this, and I'll call this delete country here. This takes in the ID of the country, which is of type integer, and here we do a delete. I'm passing the ID. So after deleting, we also redirect back to the default URL. Next, I'll do a method that returns just one country. By the way, this should be a get request. So I'll change this to get mapping like this. Then I'll copy this and paste it here, and I'll change this to find one. This should be find one also here, and the return type will be the country object. I'll also change this to find one like so. I'll get rid of this and add the return keyword here. And since we are going to be using jQuery to do this, I'll add here at the response body annotation. So this is done. At this particular point, I would like to start developing the front end. So I went ahead and seeded the database with some initial data. In the main class here, I implemented the command line runner interface, and I also injected the repository. And then in this run method, which we override from this command line runner interface, I added the following initial data in the database. The reason for doing this is that when the application is started, this method will also just go ahead and get executed, thereby executing any code that we place inside here. So with that done, I will just go ahead and create the HTML page. So I'll right click in this template folder and create a new HTML file. And I'll call it index.html. Next, and here I'll make sure that I select HTML5 and finish. And for the child set encoding here, I'm going to set it to UTF-8. And also close this tag. I'll get rid of this title. And we are making use of Thymleaf, so we need the Thymeleaf namespace here. So X, M, L, and S. I'll call it TH. This should be from HTTP www.thymeleaf.org. And next, we're going to be making use of jQuery and Bootstrap. So I'll just go ahead and add those dependencies. I'll open up pom.xml file. And inside here, I'll add jQuery from WebJars, this one, and also Bootstrap, also from WebJars, this one. So I'll save that. Next, let's include the jQuery and Bootstrap files in this index.html page. So script. And the source here will be from WebJars, jQuery. We add here the version, so it's 3.1.0, and jQuery.min.js. This is the minified version. Dot here. We'll also add the bootstrap.js file and the bootstrap.css file. So again, script. Source. It should also be WebJars. Bootstrap. The version in this case is 4.0.0-alpha.2. So 4.0.0-alpha.2 JS bootstrap.min.js, and we'll also add the bootstrap CSS file. So link. With Thymeleaf, we always need to close every tag we open. So first of all, close that, and we add URL of style sheet and href from WebJars, Bootstrap 4.0.0-alpha.2 CSS bootstrap.min.css. So this is a typo, let me fix that. It's supposed to be WebJars. And next, inside the body here, I'm going to be displaying the various countries and the capitals in a table, and that table will be inside a bootstrap card, and everything else will be in a container. So I'll create a div with a class of container here, and inside this div I'll create the card. So I'll add here a div with a class of card, and inside the card here I'll create a div which will have a class of card block. This will be the body of the card, and in this div I'll place the table. So I'll create here a table with a class of table hover. This is all bootstrap. And inside here I'll create a t head, that is the header of our table, and a tr here, and now add the following headers. So th, I'll call this id, and the next one th, I'll call this country, and the last one th, I'll call it capital. Then I'll add here a t body, and inside the body here we need to loop through the list of countries and display them. So remember, in the back end here we did a paginated query and we passed the result to the client with a variable name called data. So we need to access this data variable from the HTML page here. So I'll create here a tr tag, and here we loop through the various countries. So th each, I'll just call it country, and we access that data variable like this, and the list of countries will be in the content like so. So we display the various countries in the following TDs. So the first one, we add this th text, and we call this country.id. That will be the ID. I'll just go ahead and copy this and paste it 2 times, and this will be the name of the country. So country.name, we're accessing this from this variable here, and this will be the country.capital. I'll save this and run the application. So I'll right click here and select run as Java application. So I'll open up the browser and access localhost 8080. Yeah, and we get 4 countries displayed in the table like this. Next, I'll implement pagination. So just beneath this table, I'll add a horizontal line, and I'll also add an unordered list with a class of nav peels. This is our bootstrap, and we'll also need an li inside here. So li, this takes a class of nav item. Next, I'll generate a sequence of numbers which will represent the various pages that we have. So we do that with a for loop like this. th each, so I'll open and close those curly braces, and inside here we access the numbers object like this. So numbers.sequence, and we are generating the sequence from 0 up to the total number of pages we have minus 1. So data.total pages, this is how we access the total number of pages from the paginated query that we did in the backend, minus 1, like this. So by so doing, we have access to the individual number of pages. By the way, I'm going to place those pages in a variable here that I'll call I, and we'll do that like this. You can just paste this out and also hit enter here so we get to see everything that we're doing. And inside this li, I'll place an anchor tag. So for the moment, I'll get rid of this href, and I'll display the various pages like this. So th text should be this I here, and this can also take a class of nav link like this. I'll save that and refresh the page. So I'll open up the browser and go to localhost 8080. and we get the various pages accessed like this. Now we want to be able to click on a particular page here and get the various countries contained in that page. So in order to do that, we add here href, and inside there we do the following. Remember, in the back end, if we want to access a particular page, then we pass that page as a request parameter. So back in the front end here, all we need to do is to pass it as follows. So this should be page equal the number we just generated, like this. I'll save this and refresh the page. So I refresh the page, and if we click on the page here, you see we get the various countries in that page. That is page 2, that is page 3, and this is the last page, page 4, which contain just one country. So we can even make this look nicer by adding a class of active when a user clicks on a particular link. So in order to do that, I'll go back to the back end and I'll pass a variable called current page. So model.add attribute, this one, and I'll call it current page. And the current page will just be equal to the page that we clicked on. This page here. So we just pass it back as a current page. So back in the HTML page, we can append a class. So here I can do th class append, and we'll set that class conditionally. So we first of all start by accessing the current page variable we just created in the backend, like this. So if the current page is equals to this variable I, so if that is equal to I, then we set that link to active, like this. Active. If not, we set it to nothing, like so. So I'll save that and refresh the page. So as you can see, by default the first link is active. If I click on the next one, you see it becomes active. So this is basically it for the pagination. I will now start by implementing the create and the delete as well as the update, which will make use of dynamic modals. For the update or edit operation, I'll wrap a form around a bootstrap model so that for each update, the input fields of the form will be pre-populated with the data we want to update, and the model will be triggered dynamically. So I will start by minimizing this one here so that at least we can read whatsoever we are doing. Then I'll head over to the bootstrap site here and look for model. And here we can see different implementation of models. I will just go ahead and copy this one here. This is the one with the form. And back in the HTML file, I'll place that in a div with a class of my form. So I'll just paste it here. I'll remove the opponent tag of the form from here and paste it here. And I'll also remove the closing tag of the form from here and paste it here. I guess that is the right position, or maybe not. No, that is not the right position. So we need to paste it here instead. So next, the action of this form needs to be save. Remember, we'll define it here as save. And this will be a post method. So this is method post. And now we need to define the various input fields. So I'll first of all start by changing this to, let me say, update or create. We are going to use the same form for the create operation. So, and this should be the ID. And we also need a name, which will also be ID, and a value, which we are going to set to nothing at the moment. We are going to be using jQuery to set this value. And when you're using Thymleaf, you need to close every tag you open. So I'll just go ahead and close this, and I'll copy this and get rid of this text area here and paste what we just copied here. So this should be the name. Remember the name of the country. The ID also should be name. The name should be name, and everything else remains the same. And next, I'll just go ahead and paste it once more for the capital. So this should be capital, capital, and we also need to change this ID to capital and the name to capital. Everything else remains the same. And I'll change this to input and get rid of this. I'll just close this tag here, and the value I'll set it to save, and the type here should be submit. So next, we need a way to trigger this form. We are going to be doing that by adding a click event to an anchor tag, so that whensoever it is clicked, this form will pop up with the data we want to edit. So I'll just minimize this one here, and inside here I'll add another TD and an anchor tag. I'll give it a class of btn primary, and I'll also add a class of btn. So I'm going to target this class to add the click event to this anchor tag, and I'll call it edit. And for the time being, I'll just get rid of this href. So this will be done in jQuery. I'll just go ahead and create that jQuery file in this static folder. So I'll right click and create a new JavaScript file. And I'll place that in a folder called JS, and I'll just call it main.js. Finish. So this is jQuery. We'll start by adding a document .ready. This basically waits for the page to load. Then we target the class we just created. So it is located inside a table, and it is called a btn. Then we add the click event to it. So on click, this takes a callback function also with the event that triggered it. And all we want to do here for the time being is to trigger the model. Now remember, we have a main div here called my form, and we also want to target this ID here. So I'll just copy this one here, and back inside here we trigger the model like this. I'll start by targeting the main class that is called my form, and then this ID that is called example model. And I'll just add here dot model. This is all we need to do to trigger the model. So I'll save this, then I'll just go ahead and run this application to test it and see what happens. So I'll right click here and click on run as Java application. So the application is running. I'll open up the browser and navigate to localhost 8080. So we have the button. If I click on it, nothing happens. We have an error, surely. So let me open the console and let's see what is happening. So it seems as if Bootstrap is not happy with the version of jQuery we are using. It says we should use at least version 1.9 or something less than version 3. So we need to change that. I'll open up pom.xml file. I'll add another version of jQuery. jQuery from WebJazz. I'll just take this 2.2.3. So I'll save that. And back in the index.html file, I'll change this to 2.2.3 and save that. Then I'll rerun the application. So I'll right click and select on run as Java application. So back in the browser, I will just refresh this. Now there is another error here that is related to tooltip. We're not using that. Let's click on this and still nothing happens. Why? Because I forgot to add the JavaScript file in the HTML page. So back in the header here, I'll add another script tag. We're using Thymleaf, so src and inside here we add the location of the JavaScript file, which is main.js. Now by so doing, Thymleaf will really not know where JS is found. We need to add another source here. Here we go up one level because we're in the template folder, and this file is located in the static folder. So static JS and main.js. So I'll save that. So I'll just open up the browser and refresh this page and click on edit. And as you can see, the modal window pop up with the form. So all we need to do now is to add the data we want to edit in these input fields. So inside here, I'll add an href. And I'll add the following URL in this expression. So remember, back in the controller, we have a method that returns just one country. And this is called find1 here. I'll add this find1 here. Then we pass in the ID. From country.id. So if I were to click here at the moment, you see we get back the country in this way. So we need to prevent this default action in jQuery and then use jQuery to do a GET request that basically returns the same information like this. So back in the main.js file here, I'll start by preventing that default action from happening. So event, this event here, dot prevent default. So if we click on it by default now, it would not send the request to the server. And then next, we need to get the content of this href, which is the request we're sending to the server. So I'll just declare a variable here called href. And this should be this which refers to the event that triggered this action, dot attribute, and the attribute we want to get its content is href. And with that, I'll just declare a simple get request here that takes in this href, and there's also this callback that returns the data, or just call it a country, along with status. Now all we need to do is to set the various fields in this country object to the form input fields. And remember, for each of the input fields we declared an ID. So back inside here, first of all, I'll start by targeting the ID field. So all of this is located in a main div called my form. And I'll target the ID and set the value to country.id. And I'll basically repeat the same thing for the rest of the fields. So I'll paste this twice. The next one was name. So this should be country.name. And this one is capital. And country.capital. So let us see how that looks like in the browser. So if I were to click on USA here, for example, you see we get that data in our form. So say I want to edit my own country here, which is Ed, and the capital is war. I'll just click on it, and let us say I decided to move to Mars, or to Jupiter. And my capital is still war. If I were to save that, you see that is changed. So like this, we're basically done with the edit functionality. So we can still use the same form to implement the new functionality. Back in the HTML file here, I will just add a button here. Say for example, I'll call it new. And I'll give this also a class of, say, btn success. And I'll also add a class here of nbtn, which stands for new button. And I can just copy this. And since we are using the same form, I can just add this very class here. Like this. Okay, so if I click on this button, the same event will be triggered, but we need to be able to differentiate whether we are creating a new country or we are editing an existing country. And in order to do that, I will just add here a variable called text. So this dot text. Now this will return either this text here or the one of the edit. So I kind of minimize almost everything here. So anyway, that will return either this text here or the edit text. Okay, so here now I can just add an if statement. So if the text is edit, then I know I'm doing editing. So I'll just wrap this around this if statement. All of this. Like so. If not, I know I'm creating a new country. So I will just copy all of this here. And paste it here. And when we're creating a new country, we reset the input fields. And I'll also copy this one here and paste it here. So back in the browser, if I refresh this, we should see here this new button, and if I click on it, we have this. So I can just add another country, say South Africa. Pretoria. So save that. And if I were to check here, that country South Africa is added. So I can as well edit it. Another capital of South Africa, which I think is either the executive or the legislative capital. I'm not quite aware of that. Is Cape Town. So I'll save that. And back here you see the changes were affected. So the delete functionality will basically follow the same procedure. So back inside here, I'll just go ahead and copy this one here and paste it here. And for this one, we'll send a delete request. So we call it here delete. So I'll just change this one to delete. And I'll give this a class of btn danger. Now call it delete. And on the Bootstrap page, I'll just go ahead and copy this model here. And paste it here. There's an idea of my model. I'll just leave everything like this, and I'll have here a paragraph. And I'll write here, are you sure you want to delete this country? Then this will take a class of alert danger. Then I will change this one also here to del btn. And back in jQuery, I'll target this. So inside here, I'll add another event. Now target the button we just created, which is del btn. On, click. Also, there is a callback here, function event. And we also need to prevent the default action. So I'll copy this one here as well as this one here. And back in the HTML file here, I'll change this one to an anchor tag, and this should be href. I'll set it to nothing. We're going to set it in jQuery, and this should be a here also. And I'll just give this a btn danger also, and I'll call it delete. Then I'll also give it an ID of del ref. So I'll just copy this, and back in the JavaScript file here, I'll target that ref. So all of this is located in my model. Let me confirm that. My model, yeah. And we're targeting the del ref. So now we assign this reference to it, just like we did before in the delete case. We set this to href. Then we trigger the model. So it is called my modal. And also, not to forget, this should be like this. By the way, I have here an error. So this should be a semicolon, and this is actually an ID. It is not a class. So I'll add the following and save it. So also here we are setting the href, so we need to add here href and add in here the value href, this one. So we can now test all of this and see how it looks like in the browser. I'll just close this. Suppose I don't want to live in this world anymore. I can delete my own country now. Let me first of all edit it to Jupiter. Let me not delete the world full of people. So my own country is Jupiter and the capital is space, for example. I'll save that. Now suppose I don't want to live there anymore. I can delete it. At least I'll be the only one to perish there. So I'll click on this. And you see the modal window pop up. Then I can click on delete. And as you can see, I'm gone. My country is no more. Okay. So this should be basically it for the tutorial. As you can see, we have the pagination is working. We have the modal windows. I can add here another country with the modal windows. Say I want to add the nation of Pakistan. The capital, my geography needs to come back now. Should be Islamabad. Sorry Pakistanis if I spell this wrongly. Islamabad. Okay. This is Islamabad. Something like that. Save. You can see we have this nation. And say I want to add the nation of Gabon. The capital is Brazzaville. Oh, that was maybe Congo. I'm not sure of that capital. Anyway, this is it for the tutorial, guys. Please, if you feel you learned something from here, encourage me by hitting on the subscribe and the like button. So until the next tutorial, see you.